everybody, welcome to What Culture. I'm Scott, joined by Ewan.
Hello.
On another day with more Star Wars. Of course, always hello there. More Star Wars things are breaking. Now, you have to put a little bit of a conspiratorial hat on for the things we're about to delve into, but all the evidence lines up and everyone's thinking it.
Yes.
So,
it's a little bit conjectural at the moment, but obviously if you've been keeping up with Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, and you're probably about as sick of the discourse as we all are, to be honest. The discourse, I can't have 2 weeks. That's basically where I am with it all right now. And there's a whole thing going on, obviously, you know, Palpatine was probably the most controversial addition to Episode 9. I think we can probably all agree. None of the leaks beforehand really hinted at his inclusion. No. And it was only at Star Wars Celebration last year where they finally lifted the lid on that trailer. And then obviously Ian McDiarmid came out and was like, play it again. And, you know, it was all fun. In the moment, it was nice. I was like, oh, Palpatine's back. I'm not going to consider any potential ramifications that could come from his return.
I'm sure it was the plan all along.
Bliss, exactly. The plan all along. Well, actually, Scott Tailford, it doesn't seem as though that's the case.
Is it not surprising?
Loads of stuff has been happening after The Rise of Skywalker's release, which has painted the picture of a decidedly troubled production, I would say.
Yes.
There has been talk before release of, you know, Abrams and everyone else on set basically reworking entire scenes, basically as, like, just before shooting started and on the day of shooting certain sequences as well.
Day?
And, yeah, including different, you know, bits of dialogue, entire plot points. It was very improvisational as well, as what Oscar Isaac said, I imagine, with a pained look in his eye.
Well, I mean, this is a choice quote. He was being interviewed about would you come back to the character? Would you be Poe Dameron again? And he just literally said, no, I'm never working with Disney again, and just let that conversation
I mean, literally, you can see in the film when he goes, somehow the Emperor's returned.
Yeah.
He does that, and it's, you know, I relate. But anyway, there's all sorts of stuff that's coming out recently regarding time material to The Rise of Skywalker that is strangely not lining up with the film in a really, really weird way. There was a picture book for kids that came out the other week that completely omitted the entire climax involving Palpatine. There was also an issue with the art book currently. It was released in Korea, and basically Disney launched a recall and destruction notice on these books because for some reason they didn't want them out in the wild, and now the art book has been delayed over here as well. And then yesterday there was talk on Twitter that the audio book for The Rise of Skywalker is delayed now. Del Rey did reach out and clarify that, you know, that
it was a mistake.
It was a mistake for the reason for the delay. But there are all sorts of different things going on right now that kind of point towards the fact that Palpatine was added in at the very last minute.
Yeah, which we always assumed anyway, just because of the way, even the way that movie feels is very slapdash, very sort of thrown together, and you know, you can look at the cast comments and stuff like that. But for me, I mean, we also had the visual dictionary stuff where, like, you know, Palpatine I don't even think is mentioned by name. No. It's just sort of like vague, you know, allusions to like certain figures of great power and whatever. Just things that if you want to get your little tin hat on, line up as being the reason why that movie was so thrown together. And like for me, it's been obvious since, you know, the moment I saw it.
Yeah, it's really wild to me. Like, you think of like those very first leaks that we had for The Rise of Skywalker, where Claude was telegraphed more front and center than Palpatine was. It's a interesting thing to believe that there is a Claude Kurt hashtag release the Claude Kurt 2020. But you know, the fact that Palpatine's presence in this film feels so bolted on. You know, I've only seen The Rise of Skywalker once, and I hope it remains that way for a little while.
It was way better the second time, but I think it's because I accepted how terrible it was.
Yes, but like the whole thing with Palpatine there is that he feels almost like he's just an outside thing. He only ever has scenes with about 2 other people in the entire film, and that's of course Ben Solo and Rey. And it feels as though the entire film could basically go ahead and not acknowledge him and basically exist as it would do normally. The whole stuff at the beginning where you've got the opening crawl being like, oh, Palpatine's back, that's really kind
of... From a Fortnite event.
Exactly, and the whole stuff here, it feels as though it was so bolted on and so kind of... It just doesn't vibe with everything, and, you know, you might as well say that, you know, it was our plan all along to bring back Palpatine. You know, Chris Terrio has gone on record to say that it was Kathleen Kennedy's idea because he loves blaming other people for his own mistakes, and it just keeps on getting worse and worse. And I don't want to be this thing to be a big old rant because I love Star Wars at the end of the day. I don't want to talk about The Rise of Skywalker any longer than you guys do. But at the same time, I find it very fascinating that something this big was added in at such a late stage.
It feels like it's having got the distance of obviously not being on the production and, you know, sitting here as a fan, it's quite easy to sort of go, well, of course management mandated that thing that, you know, we can all sort of point at and blame. But I do wonder, because it does feel like one of those, you know, just sort of like corporately mandated things. It's like, okay, who can we bring back? What'll work on the biggest biggest possible demographic, Palpatine. And wherever that idea came from, whether it was Kat Kennedy or Terry or JJ or whatever, it does feel like this sort of like Hail Mary, maybe this will fix everything type thing. Because I remember when, like you said, when it first got announced when he was in the trailer, and I was like, well, maybe there is a way to do this. Maybe there is a way to make it all make sense, tie everything to Palpatine and the war with the Skywalkers and whatever. But obviously the proof is in the pudding, and the final movie didn't make him convincing. He looked like a reshoot.
And in this case, the pudding is Bantha Poodoo.
Yes, the pudding is the thing that is always blowing up with a million different lasers. I don't know, for me, Rise of Skywalker felt like a mess the whole way through, and all this stuff only confirms that stuff was a complete mess from the get-go.
All this stuff coming out around about the time that all the Duel of the Fates stuff has been emerging as well obviously doesn't help it any further. I mean, I don't want to, it's easy to look at the Colin Trevorrow stuff and basically go, oh, what could have been? That would have been amazing, because at the end of the day, it is just concept art, it is just a leaked script. We have no idea, what it would have looked like as a tangible product, as a film. But at the same time, I think I have to look at that and go, well, at least there was more originality to it, and the Rise of Skywalker does include certain elements from Trevorrow's film. Stuff like with Palpatine is in that film, but only briefly in Trevorrow's version.
Yeah.
But they do talk about the whole idea of like getting a power that helps you suck the life out of people, like Palpatine does at the end of the Rise of Skywalker. So there are different bits and bobs.
Of him were plans. The whole way through.
The whole stuff here, it just feels so reactionary.
Yeah.
And I don't know how... One of these days, Scott, I want a massive expose on just what on earth happened behind the scenes here, because I think the idea to actually have each film be headed up by its own team, in retrospect, I think we could all agree we would have preferred the sequel trilogy to have one cohesive
Some sort of
vision.
cohesion, yeah.
But at the same time, it did have its benefits. I like The Force Awakens, I love The Last Jedi, but they are very disparate films, and The Rise of Skywalker, I feel as though, typifies the problems with the sequels to the biggest extent, especially with Palpatine coming in and basically just nuking the whole conclusion from orbit.
I tell you the thing that stands out, for as much as divisive as Rian Johnson, like as Last Jedi can be or whatever, the thing that I love about him is how honest he's always been. And even if I still have the Blu-ray for Last Jedi, and I love the Director and the Jedi featurette that they did, where they just laid it out. It was like Mark Hamill being completely honest about the decisions that he didn't like, Rian Johnson being completely honest about, well, I think I should do this. And there's a level of honesty to that for me shines through. And even if you don't like that final product, at least you had a honest creative process going into it that you can admire in retrospect, divorced from the movie itself. This, though, Rise of Skywalker, seems like the most controlled, massage the message, PR speak thing possible.
Borgalit's there, just
literally
getting the tentacles.
He knows the truth. And you have this sort of final product, which feels like a product. It feels like this massaged thing. And it's like, well, if we say this, then this will damage control for the time that it's in the cinemas. Oh, well, this has happened. Okay, we'll say this. And for me, it's just one massive mess.
Yes.
Star Wars is in a really horrible place right now.
I'm really curious to see what happens with the Tide media when it does eventually come out, because so far I feel as though it's been a little bit of delay. I know the Last Jedi novelization didn't come out until about 6 months after originally the film came out, whereas the Force Awakens novelization literally came out as literally a few days after the film release.
Right, okay.
So there was whole stuff going on there where I'm looking at that and thinking, well, all this has been delayed. Obviously, films are going to change throughout production. That is a given. All films do that. Anyone who denies that is lying. But not maybe to the extent that happened here, and not to the lateness of which it happened in this film.
Yeah, there's also the sheer scale of the production. Like, you have tie-in novels and some video games that pull something, like, different apps that have to tie into different things. Things like the Fortnite event, which kind of felt cobbled together. It was like, well, we need to announce this thing and get people interested. I know Fortnite, which is, for me, is another thing where it feels like this nebulous corporate idea, which is designed to sort of reel the kids in. But the sheer scale of the production, the amount of moving cogs in that production, the amount of things that have to come together for it to work, which the MCU and Marvel do so well, for the vast majority anyway. Obviously those movies have some reshoots, but yeah, for me it's like it exemplifies everything wrong with the way Disney have handled all three movies, and this, like you said, the lack of cohesion, the lack of a through line planning for from one step to the next. It feels very much cobbled together with each step.
Yeah, exactly.
And especially in retrospect.
And the post-release, post-mortem has been very peculiar as well. I mean, I think we're all a little bit tired of all the different people that were involved in the film basically coming out and explaining every different decision that they had to do, whether that's Terry blaming it on everyone else, or Abrams is basically ambly walking through thinking, this is fine, this is all great, because at the end of the day, we all have to live with this movie now. It's there, it's in the open, we've got to live with it, deal with it. But I'm still curious in my head. I've got got these images of like the Disney kind of people just behind the scenes, just trying their best to basically cobble together some art and be like, this was the plan all along.
Yeah, do you think at this point they would be better served just literally laying it all out? Because it's not like people didn't have the best intentions.
Yes,
it's
exactly.
just like, you know, it's like for me that would be
No one sets out to make a bad Star Wars
Of
movie.
course, and like, yeah, a lot of people, like, you know, from Terry, I mean, I don't, like, the, you know, Terry's involvement in it, yeah, he's sort of pointing the blame, he did have some hand in the script itself, like, obviously, whatever. For me, the way to sort of solve all of that would be, like, okay, we tried this, it didn't work, therefore we tried this, here's the production schedule that we had, and literally just lay it all out.
Yeah.
Those stories are going to come out eventually anyway.
Yeah.
Like, do you think that's the better way that they could go?
I definitely agree with you, but I feel as though Disney are naturally kind of quite secretive about these processes, and I do think at the moment, based on the evidence that we have so far, with stuff being delayed and stuff being recalled and all this sort of thing, you know, books releasing to try and get in, you know, to coincide with the film's release, ignoring all the Palpatine stuff, it does feel as though maybe they're going to take the route of basically, well, we're not going to talk about this
Just
ever
erase it
again.
from history.
This was what everything was originally going to be, and it's going to probably take a long time until we know for certain what actually happened behind the scenes.
Yeah, I guess we'll see how it goes. For me, right now, it seems very fishy. It's very fishy indeed. But let us know what you think down in the comments below of the potential fallout of all the things regarding Rise of Skywalker. For now, I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com.
And I've been Ewan from WhatCulture.com.
And we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Are you sure you don't want those death sticks? I mean, I know a guy.
I'd like to buy some death sticks.